Welcome to the Ray Bar podcast. Today, I'd like to start out and to do this next podcast. Uh, so, trying to figure out my system here. There we go. Excuse me while I figure out my system. It's been trying to update my system and knowing that, getting some feedback from some of you guys as far as just the volumes as well as um, different things that have come across that you guys have pointed out that have been very helpful. So I want to first acknowledge that to have people give me feedback has been so very important and very helpful, honestly. So, anyways, I've been able to change the mic, and we're going to try it this podcast and see what the difference it is and see if it'll actually help. Most of the people that do podcasts actually use this Shure SM7B. And so I'm going to try it out and see what it does and see how it works for us. So today on the podcast, I labeled it Be Authentic because the thing that I've struggled with a lot in my life is I grew up trying to fit into a box. And the box that, to a degree, like my parents wanted me to fit in was their idea of what they wanted me to be. And so when you do that, it somewhat takes creativity and the things that your imagination and forces it to be somewhat compliant with the way that your parents want, which parents growing up, they're the guardrails for society. They help you learn what to do, what not to do until you're of age. And once you become of age, those guardrails are the things that get you through life. So if you don't learn those as a young child and your parents don't teach those to you, society will. So in this podcast, I want to talk about learning how to be authentic, which it's taken me a long time to do that because I've always tried to be a people pleaser, and I'm still a recovering people pleaser, trying to figure out little things that I can do to just fit in here or fit in there rather than just being authentic. So in today's show, in today's episode, I'm going to dig into being authentic. And this is just as much for me as it is for you. And if you get something out of it, like it, share it with your friends, you know, leave a comment, even if it's just a thumbs up. It helps me with my rankings. It also allows other people to see it. So if you can do that for me, I'd appreciate it. So let's dig into this subject, being authentic. Being authentic with others is important. But I think the most important thing is being authentic with yourself. And so in today's episode, I'm going to discuss both of those. So, first on my list that I've researched here and have written down is get to know yourself. Take time to reflect and understand your values, your passion, your strengths. And when you have a strong sense of self, it becomes easier to express your authentic voice. So knowing who you are and what you want and the direction you want to go helps play a big role in that, learning what you want to be. So I'm gonna try and share personal stories, highlights, and experiences, even challenges that I've gone through to try and help me grow and become the person I am today. So one thing that I've really enjoyed is Brene Brown. If you haven't been introduced to Brene Brown, you're missing out. She's an amazing person. Um, Her TEDx talk that she gave down in Texas, I don't know if it's Houston or where she got out there, and if you listen to her talk, she was she didn't know what to say. So she got out there and was authentic and vulnerable. And she is honestly world renowned. She's written books and quite an educated person in the space of being vulnerable. And vulnerable is important because that's where you put yourself out there to allow yourself to be able to be yourself unapologetically, no matter what other people say. And that's where I am today is that learning these things has been important for me, and also putting this show together has helped me a lot. And I can't be grateful enough for you guys for listening and allowing me to be able to share my thoughts and be authentic with you. So, practicing active listening is another thing that's important about engaging with others. Being authentic involves active listening and empathetic responses. So, showing that I actually care is important, but at the same time, validate what you're doing and what you're going through, but also that turns around and comes back to yourself. Allow yourself to be validated. Allow yourself to feel the experience you're going through, whether it's painful, joyful, or anything. Allow yourself to feel that because that will be once you learn how to do that, it's beautiful. Things that I've gone through in my life that I thought that I had a handle on my life, and the universe threw me some pretty good curveballs, and I've learned how to roll with the punches and somewhat make things happen, even though I don't have control of the outcome. Because honestly, if I knew what the outcome would be, would it change anything? I don't think it would. So learning how to be vulnerable, and also like the saying that comes to mind is life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% the way you react. So learning how to react to the things in life, they may not be the best things, but learning how to react and use them to benefit yourself, to grow as a person is important. Um, one thing that uh, I want to do is learning how to be transparent. Um, Transparency is huge. Being open, and as I get going on the show more and more, I'm able to have people that are interviewing. Interviewing them as they're as well interviewing me to bring up different subjects, maybe even subjects I'm not comfortable with, things I don't know about. So, anyways, it's going to be a test of wits to be able to be authentic and agree, and where I agree, and honestly be able to disagree and be okay. So, for instance, vulnerability to a degree is our ego telling us if somebody knows this about me, I I am embarrassed. My character is going to be assassinated. I'm gonna be this bad person, and everybody and caring so much what people think, and so it alters the way we go about our lives. So, in my life, I've allowed others to come in and give me their opinion, and caring so much about their opinion rather than being okay. How does that fit in? How does that help me? And if it don't help me, it's just an opinion. But getting honest feedback from someone and critiquing something is one of the most useful tools you can have in your life. Just like today, I had somebody hit me up about my podcast. They're like, "Bro, you're bearing your testimony on your podcast. Be more real. You have a natural voice. Use it. Don't get up there and change who you are just because you got a mic in front of you." So I'd like to shout out that friend that's that said that, because it it allows me to be able to see what other people see in me. But the thing is that what it does is it allows me to understand that other people that know me can see that I am going into a somewhat of a people pleasing mode, so to speak, and I go to this mic voice, and I understand it because I've interviewed my dad, and the minute I hook him up to a mic, it goes into this professional mode of given the date, what we're doing, and it takes him a minute to be able to finally relax and be authentic, and not be that person that is trying to be behind the mic, trying to be this professional, just by the book. Be authentic. It makes you more believable. Not only that, it brings out your character, as well as allows your audience to be able to be See you for who you are. And so the next point is along those lines. Cultivate self acceptance. Embrace who you are, including your imperfections and quirks. Accepting yourself unconditionally allows you to be more authentic and genuine with others. So a lot of people, they think, well, I don't have the voice for this, or I can't do this or that. Who says you can't? Allow yourself to be able to explore and be that person. I remember watching, for instance, the America's Got Talent and the audition of Susan Boyle. If you haven't watched it, it'd be a good go look it up. And you see Simon on there, Simon Cowell, and he's just over there, hand on his face, like, oh my gosh, this old lady's going to come up and sing again. Ah, another one of these guys. And the minute she opened her mouth and started singing that song from Les Mis, his jaw dropped. And just because our outward appearance isn't what you would imagine a superstar or a professional singer or anyone to come out, it would it blows your mind what's behind the personas that we carry with ourselves or of ourselves, excuse me. So be able to embrace your quirks, no matter what it is. Love yourself unconditionally. Because once you learn how to love yourself, what other people say, it has very little meaning. Unless you can resonate with that and it actually helps you become a better person. But you let other people, their opinions of you, they roll off your back because genuinely you know deep inside who you are. And I know quite a few people, you're harder on yourself than you are on others. You require so much of yourself to give and to do certain things that you don't stop long enough to realize that you're not giving yourself enough credit for what you do. So be authentic, be genuine, accept yourself unconditionally, no matter what your voice is, no matter what you, I mean, whether you got a glass eye or a peg leg or no matter what, you're authentic. If we were all the same person, we all had the same hobbies, the world would be boring. We'd be it wouldn't be colorful at all. It'd be so robotic and boring. So be yourself. The world needs more of you. So the next point I've written down is practice mindfulness. Be present and aware of the current moment. Enhance your authenticity. It helps you respond and genuinely and intentionally rather than reacting impulsively. I'm trying to remember if it's Brian Regan or there's another comedian. I can't remember who he is, but he always like somebody always had a better story. And it's like, well, I landed on the moon or something. And we try to one up each other's stories. And there's a time and a place for that. But since I've been mindful of that, it blows my mind how many times I've tried to step in and one up somebody's story. Just for a minute, stop and consciously think of when you've had a conversation, listening to somebody tell their story, when you without you jumping in and saying, "Well, yeah, well, I did this. I landed on the moon," or whatever the comedian says. It's interesting because if you were to stop and validate that person, their feelings, and say, "That must have sucked. That was a pretty sucky situation," or, "You know what? I'm happy for you. You had that ability to do that and you conquered and you won or you accomplished this stuff. That's awesome." And validate them. Because a lot of times, just because you have a better story doesn't make you the better person. And just because you have a cooler story doesn't make you better. But I guarantee the minute you start looking at others and validating them and listening to their story honestly without trying to one up their story, you're going to find it actually quite hard. At least for me, I have it because of my ADHD. I'm like, oh, that guy's story triggered this story. And I want to tell this story because this was so cool because this person. And stories is the way we connect with each other. We connect through stories. If you go back to the ancient scripts and the ancient books, the Bible, the way they portray history is through a story. So as long as you can get your story heard and told, that story will survive. You look at movies, they're just stories that are acted out. And quite a few people will agree with me that the movie's never better than the book. If you read the book and you watch the movie, you're disappointed because the book has such a better portrayal because your imagination can go all over the place. So be mindful, be present, be aware of the current moment, enhance your authenticity, and you validate people. And if there's a chance to be able to add or contribute, that's great. But next time you do go into that story mode, be mindful and wonder, hey, am I trying to one up somebody because I have a cooler story? And you know what? If you have a beer and a campfire and a little bit of devil lettuce, whatever you want to call it, you know, one up on somebody's story can actually be pretty hilarious. And there's a time and a place for it. But if somebody's being vulnerable and they're telling you a story and you come out, well, yeah, you ought to be grateful because this is what happened to me. They're going to shut down. They're not going to be authentic with you because their ego is going to be like, well, those guys aren't listening. So, anyways, the next bullet point that I've got is foster genuine connection. Authenticity thrives in authentic relationships, as well as surround yourself with people who support and encourage your true self and reciprocate by nurturing meaningful connection. And the people that honestly encourage you to be your best self, those are the people that honestly are looking out for your best interest. I've had people in my life growing up where I try to do something, they're like, "Well, you don't know how to do it, so don't do it or do this." And yet I've had other people be like, "Oh, you wanna learn how to do this? Cool. Here, I'll show you." And they had no problem about showing me how to do something, whether it was, growing up, it was, started out with just little things around the house or who knows, building something in the sandbox, all the way up to my life now where you get in the corporate world and you get into a certain part of the workforce, you try doing something else that's not in your job description, then a lot of people are like, "Hey, that's my job. Don't do that." Rather than being like, "You want to learn that? Cool. Here, I'll show you." And I'm sure that there's place and time and place where you have to be in your lane, otherwise things get screwed up. But allowing people to be able to be authentic and share their experiences and be professional, genuine, creating a connection. And those are the people you're going to remember throughout your life. And some people they're too shy to be able to stand up and say, "Hey, teach me how to do this. I want to learn how to do this," and be vulnerable. Because there's probably people that would reach out and be able to help you, but because they don't know that you need it or want it, no matter what it is, they're not gonna they're never gonna know. So be vulnerable, be authentic, I know sometimes it might get you into trouble because it's like, a lot of times people run their mouth and they're being authentic, but if with somebody with the right ego might give you a knuckle sandwich. So I'm sure there's a time and a place. But this is stuff that I've learned in my life as well as trying to learn, and I'm passing it on to you as well as learning to be vulnerable, be authentic, be that person that is even in my podcast as I get going, trying my best to be that person that is that way. So as I wind down the podcast here, I want to shout out to people in my life that have done the very thing that have taught me to be authentic. There's people that if I named their names, they'd be like, "Well, when did I do that?" We don't realize the people in our lives that we touch, people that little act of kindness or that thing that we have done to help out or to be authentic, leaves a mark. I got people from my childhood to this day I have respect for that literally taught me how to be authentic, but also took time to teach me things in my life that I use today as an experience that I've grown. And it started from way young, and even today, people that are even younger than me, honestly, where we get this idea that, well, if they're younger than me, I know more than they do. No, no, no. I've got some friends I want to get on this show that are quite a bit younger than me by 4, 5, 6 years that have gone out and shook the bushes and have very productive businesses. Very good. And they didn't do it by going out and pleasing everybody. They had to be authentic and start somewhere. And so I appreciate you listening in and tuning in and get to the day. Excuse me, I'm getting my words mixed up. Make today the day we make the change to be authentic. Somebody walks by, don't be afraid to say hi. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Even if they tell you to piss off, hey, be authentic, be yourself. So, with that, I'd sign off on today's podcast, as usual, saying behave and brave, and we'll catch you on the next podcast. Thanks for watching.